Greetings. blending African heritage with American experiences. This included the creation of spirituals, folk stories, and culinary traditions that have significantly influenced American culture. Community life among the enslaved also provided a vital support network, offering emotional and practical support. Kinship ties, both blood-related and chosen, were crucial for survival and resilience. Enslaved individuals often relied on these networks for sharing resources, caring for each other's children, and providing solace and resistance against their conditions. Hardship and tenacity were hallmarks of slave life in the Mississippi Delta. Their routines from dawn to dusk were defined by the rigorous demands of plantation labor, while their living conditions reflected the deprivation and control imposed upon them. Despite these challenges, the enslaved people in the Delta fostered a sense of community and cultural identity that helped them to endure and resist the conditions of their bondage. The family structures among the enslaved in the Delta, as in much of the antebellum South, were complex and often subject to the harsh realities of slavery. Despite the oppressive conditions, enslaved individuals endeavored to maintain familial bonds, which provided a crucial source of support and identity. Families were typically extended, and kinship networks, including both blood relations and chosen family ties, played a significant role in community life. The institution of slavery, which allowed for the separation of families through sales and transfers, however, constantly threatened these family ties. Enslaved parents, children, and spouses could be sold away from one another at the discretion of their enslavers, leading to the fragmentation of families. What were the religious practices and forms of resistance among the enslaved? Religion played a central role in the lives of the enslaved in the Mississippi Delta, serving both as a source of spiritual solace and as a means of resistance. Enslaved Africans and their descendants often blended traditional African religious beliefs with Christianity, creating unique expressions of faith that were deeply infused with themes of liberation and hope. Secret religious meetings, held away from the oversight of enslavers, provided spaces for the enslaved to express their faith freely, offer prayers for deliverance, and reinforce community bonds. These gatherings were also important for the transmission of oral traditions and for fostering a sense of collective identity and resistance against the dehumanizing conditions of slavery. The biblical narratives of deliverance, particularly the Exodus story, resonated deeply with enslaved individuals who drew parallels between their own quest for freedom and the biblical stories of liberation. Religion thus became a covert means of resistance, offering a vision of hope and justice that challenged the moral foundations of slavery. Music, storytelling, and cultural expressions. Music and storytelling were vital components of social and cultural life among the enslaved in the Mississippi Delta. Spirituals, work songs, and field hollers not only provided a means of emotional expression and spiritual comfort, but also served as tools for communication and resistance. These songs could convey messages about escape plans or express covert resistance to enslavement, all while under the guise of religious or work-related singing. Storytelling, similarly, played a crucial role in preserving African heritage and transmitting cultural values, history, and knowledge from one generation to the next. Folk tales often featured characters and themes that symbolized resilience, cleverness, and resistance against oppressors, serving as subtle forms of cultural resistance and as means of instilling a sense of identity and pride among the enslaved. Cultural expressions among the enslaved were not limited to music and storytelling. They also included dance, crafts, and the creation of material culture that reflected the blending of African and American influences. These practices were not only a testament to the creativity and resilience of the enslaved, but also crucial means of sustaining psychological and cultural autonomy in the face of oppression. How did resilience, creativity, and resistance shape the social and cultural life of the enslaved in the Mississippi Delta? Family, religion, music, and storytelling were foundational to the creation of a vibrant culture that allowed enslaved individuals to maintain a sense of identity, community, and hope, despite the harsh realities of their lives. What was the psychological and physical effects of enslavement? The impact of enslavement on the population in the Mississippi Delta was profound, leaving indelible marks both physically and psychologically. Enslaved individuals faced brutal working conditions, malnutrition, inadequate housing, and a lack of medical care, leading to severe physical tolls, including injuries, illnesses, and shortened lifespans. The psychological effects were equally devastating, encompassing trauma, fear, and the stripping away of personal autonomy. The constant threat of family separation and the denial of basic human rights inflicted deep psychological wounds and a sense of powerlessness among the enslaved. What were the dynamics of power and control among the enslaved in the Mississippi Delta? The dynamics of power and control in the plantation system were structured to dehumanize the enslaved and maintain strict control over their lives. This was achieved through a combination of legal, physical, and psychological means, including harsh laws, surveillance, punishment, and the cultivation of a culture of fear. Enslavers employed overseers to enforce discipline, utilizing physical violence and other forms of punishment as a means to quell resistance and ensure compliance. Simultaneously, the social and legal framework of slavery denied enslaved individuals any legal rights or autonomy, rendering them property in the eyes of the law. This system of power and control not only facilitated the economic exploitation of enslaved labor, but also perpetuated a societal order that devalued the humanity of African Americans, the effects of which would extend far beyond the abolition of slavery. The scale of enslavement, characterized by the significant numbers and harsh realities of plantation life, underscores the central role that enslaved labor played in the economic development of the Mississippi Delta. The enduring impact of this system on the enslaved population highlights the profound human cost of the cotton economy and the legacy of slavery in shaping the history and social fabric of the region. The legacy of slavery in the Mississippi Delta? The legacy of slavery in the Mississippi Delta has had a lasting impact on racial disparities and economic inequalities in the region. Despite the abolition of slavery, the structures and systems that upheld it did not disappear overnight. The emergence of sharecropping and tenant farming systems in the post-Civil War era often perpetuated economic dependence and poverty among African American communities. Jim Crow laws, which enforced racial segregation and restricted economic opportunities for African Americans well into the 20th century, served to further entrench these disparities. The effects of these systemic inequalities are still visible today, manifesting in gaps in wealth, education, healthcare, and access to opportunities between white and African American populations in the Delta. Efforts to address and overcome these disparities continue, highlighting the enduring challenge of fully dismantling the legacy of slavery. How the Delta's history informs present-day social and economic conditions? The history of slavery and its aftermath in the Mississippi Delta had a profound and enduring impact on the region's present-day social and economic conditions. This history is not a distant relic. Rather, it informs and shapes the contemporary landscape in significant ways. The legacy of economic disparities, racial segregation, and systemic inequalities that originated in the era of slavery continues to affect the Delta's communities. The economic structure, heavily influenced by the agricultural dominance of cotton and the subsequent sharecropping system, has resulted in persistent poverty and limited opportunities for many residents, particularly within African American communities. Understanding this historical context is crucial for addressing current social and economic challenges in the Delta. It highlights the need for targeted interventions and policies that address the root causes of inequality, such as access to quality education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. Recognizing the historical origins of these disparities can also foster a greater understanding and dialogue among communities about the path towards economic and social justice. The ongoing struggle for racial justice and equality. The struggle for racial justice and equality, deeply rooted in the Delta's history of slavery and segregation, remains a pressing issue today. The civil rights movements of the past have paved the way for continued advocacy and activism, yet the fight against systemic racism and for equal rights is far from over. The Delta, with its rich history of resistance and resilience, continues to be a center for these efforts. Present-day movements for racial justice and equality draw on the lessons and legacies of the past, seeking to address not only overt discrimination, but also the more subtle forms of systemic bias that persist. The ongoing struggle encompasses a broad range of issues, including voting rights, criminal justice reform, educational equity, and economic inclusion. Activists and community leaders in the Delta and beyond are working to dismantle the lingering effects of slavery and segregation, advocating for policies and practices that promote true equality and justice for all. It underscores the importance of continued vigilance, activism, and education in the fight for racial justice and equality. As our journey through the Mississippi Delta comes to a close, we're reminded of the importance of remembering and learning from the past. The story of the Delta teaches us about resilience, injustice, and the ongoing quest for equality. Let's carry these lessons forward, inspired to build a more just and understanding world. Before we conclude this journey, I invite you to take a moment to engage with our content. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Share this video with your friends and followers on social media. Comment, share your thoughts or questions in the comments section below. Subscribe, if you haven't already. Subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. Your support helps us reach more people and continue these important conversations. Thank you for being part of our community. Peace and love.